The first thing to vanish wasn't Damon Wright. It was trust. In the weeks following the sparse military funeral in Montgomery, Alabama, Damon's family began asking questions that the Department of Defense didn't seem eager to answer. Why was the service so unofficial? Why hadn't anyone from his unit reached out? And more critically, why had Monique insisted on a closed casket without even attempting to view her husband's remains? Damon's sister, Denise, had always known her brother to be meticulous. He was the kind of man who folded his clothes in military corners, even when off duty. But nothing about the funeral seemed like something Damon would have wanted. He would have wanted honors, she told a local reporter years later. He would have wanted his unit there. Something about it just felt off. Denise filed a formal request for the autopsy report and identification details. The Army's Casualty and Mortuary Affairs Office responded with a carefully worded statement. The remains have been identified through uniform remnants, partial dental records, and situational evidence. No full autopsy report was included. There was no mention of DNA. When pressed, the office claimed DNA testing hadn't been possible due to the condition of the remains. It was vague, too vague. But grief has a way of softening suspicion, and eventually Denise, like everyone else, let the matter go. Monique didn't. She moved quickly. By December 2011, she had sold the house she and Damon had shared and liquidated joint assets. Her husband's life insurance policies were paid out in full, including a $75,000 USAA benefit. Friends recall a quiet garage sale in January. By the end of that month, she was gone. She resettled in Augusta, Georgia, a few miles from Fort Gordon. Though close to military life, she remained at arm's length. She didn't remarry. She didn't join a support group. She didn't talk about Damon. Her children were enrolled under her maiden name. She told neighbors only that her husband had died overseas. No one saw her cry. Drop your city in the comments below. And while you're here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as you support our channel to grow. In 2013, a former neighbor in Montgomery tried to reconnect with Monique, but found her number disconnected. Her Facebook profile had gone dark. Trinity Fellowship Church, where Monique once led the women's Bible group, confirmed she had let her membership lapse in early 2012. She simply disappeared. The government, however, had closed the book. Damon Wright was dead on paper. Monique was a widow, and no one had any reason to reopen the file until 12 years later. On a rainy May evening in 2023, a 56-year-old man named Alvin Briggs made a routine call to the Detroit Police Department. He lived in Highland Park, a struggling neighborhood tucked within the boundaries of Detroit. For years, the house next to it sat abandoned, but for the past few nights, he'd noticed flickering lights inside, shadows at odd hours, movement. "I think someone's squatting next door," he told the dispatcher. 2 patrol officers from the 11th Precinct responded just before 9:20 p.m. The house was dark, unpowered, its windows boarded from the inside. The rear door was ajar. Inside, they found no electricity, no running water, just signs of rudimentary survival: a sleeping bag, a pile of empty food cans, and a weathered Bible missing its covers. In the front room sat a man. He was thin, unshaven, and visibly confused. He said nothing when addressed. He carried no identification. His eyes were vacant but alert. His clothing was torn. Scars ran across his upper torso, and one collarbone appeared to have healed improperly from an old fracture. The officers gently took him into custody for a welfare check. At Henry Ford Hospital, he was treated for malnutrition and dehydration. He remained mostly silent, except to utter one name during a lucid moment: Monique. The moment the name Monique left his lips, a tremor ran through the room. The ER staff at Henry Ford Hospital had dealt with their share of disoriented patients, runaways, amnesiacs, the mentally ill, but something about this man didn't sit right. His eyes flickered with recognition when he said it. Not confusion, not fantasy, memory. His physical condition told a brutal story. Faint scars on his torso suggested past surgical procedures. His clavicle had been shattered and healed improperly. There were signs of long-term malnutrition, possible untreated PTSD, and a nervous system dulled by years of survival stress. But his fingerprints? That's what changed everything. A routine check was initiated by the hospital's liaison with the Detroit Police Department. The moment the prints hit the system, alerts lit up across multiple federal databases. The man seated quietly in room 402 of Henry Ford Hospital matched the biometrics of a U.S. Army Staff Sergeant, Damon Arite, declared dead in 2011. At first, law enforcement assumed it was identity theft. Perhaps this man had stolen Damon's old military records, though no one could explain how he'd also managed to match fingerprints. The Department of Defense was notified, and an investigator from Army CID was dispatched to the hospital. Meanwhile, Monique Wright, who had not been heard from in over a decade, was about to get the shock of her life. Quick break. Let us know in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Whether you're in New York, Nebraska, we'd love to hear it. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button to stay updated on the wildest true crime stories here on Criminal True File. At precisely 3:32 p.m. on May 15th, Monique Wright received a call from a restricted number. The voice on the other end was calm, official. It asked if she had a moment to speak. "Yes," she replied cautiously. "This is Special Agent Hall from the Army Criminal Investigation Division. We have a few questions concerning your husband." A pause. "My late husband," she corrected. The line crackled. Then, "Ma'am, we believe your husband may still be alive." Silence. Monique ended the call. 2 hours later, she checked into a Marriott under a different name and never returned to her townhouse in Augusta. That same day, Army CID released a preliminary statement. While they didn't go public, internally, they began to reinvestigate the 2011 death report and funeral documentation. The Pentagon was made aware. If Damon Wright was alive, that meant something had gone terribly wrong, or someone had orchestrated deception on a scale no one had seen before. On May 18th, following several days of rest and treatment, Damon Wright was medically cleared to be interviewed by federal agents. The man who sat across from CID officials was gaunt but lucid. He confirmed his identity without hesitation. When asked where he had been for the past 12 years, he gave a chilling, fragmented account. "I woke up in a storage container. I remember the heat. I remember someone taking off my dog tags." He recounted being drugged and moved repeatedly from Afghanistan to Pakistan, then possibly Syria. He said he spent years in confinement, often restrained, fed irregularly, beaten for information he didn't have. "I didn't know why they kept me alive." His escape, he claimed, happened by accident. In 2021, during a raid by local forces on a suspected militant outpost in northern Syria, Damon slipped away into chaos. He spent the next 2 years moving westward, eventually finding passage to Europe and then to the U.S. through informal refugee channels. There were holes in his story. Big ones. No one could verify his route. No one could confirm where he'd been for over a decade. But his body told a story of prolonged captivity, and his identity was beyond dispute. The military scrambled to figure out what to do next. Where are you tuning in from? Seriously, we want to know. Drop it in the comments. And if this story has you hooked, hit that like button and subscribe to Criminal True File for more cases that twist when you least expect. Monique Wright had not yet been located. By early June 2023, an internal review had revealed several inconsistencies in Damon's original death report. Among the most shocking discoveries, no DNA testing had ever been conducted on the remains buried in Greenwood Cemetery. The dental records used confirmed the identity had not been independently verified, only matched loosely to Damon's. No visual identification was ever attempted. Even more troubling, the explosion in Kandahar was reclassified. It had occurred, but the casualty report may have been falsified. How? The only person with access to all the right paperwork, timing, and motive was Monique. In early July 2023, following authorization from the Department of Defense and a court order obtained through the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Alabama, the body buried under the name Sergeant Damon Wright at Greenwood Memorial Cemetery was exhumed. A full forensic analysis was conducted by a joint task team composed of Army Mortuary Affairs personnel, FBI forensics experts, and local authorities. This time, they didn't rely on paperwork or assumptions. They went straight to the DNA. What they found shattered the official narrative. The remains in the casket did not belong to Damon Wright. In fact, the identity of the buried man is still unknown to this day. Dental records, now reanalyzed, showed inconsistencies that were overlooked or ignored. In 2011, the bone structure didn't match Damon's military medical profile. No military dog tags were recovered from the body. Only a uniform, shredded, partially burnt, and soaked in dry blood, had been used to identify the man. A uniform anyone with access to his locker could have taken. The DNA came back as no familial match when tested against samples from Damon's mother and sister. The body had belonged to someone else. Damon Wright had never died in Kandahar. Pause here and drop your location in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from right now? We see you New Jersey, Texas, and the Philippines. While you're at it, go ahead and subscribe to Criminal True File. These stories keep unfolding, and trust us, you won't want to miss what happens next. With the confirmation that Damon was alive, the Army launched a secondary investigation. This one led by its criminal fraud division. The widow, Monique Wright, had collected $400,000 in death benefits, a $75,000 life insurance payout, full mortgage coverage on the home they shared, over $60,000 in additional military survivor entitlements over the following 2 years. She had claimed all benefits without a single question raised, and after relocating to Augusta, she had largely vanished. No employment history, no new tax filings under her name, and no traceable bank activity after 2014. Investigators turned to property records. They found a digital breadcrumb, a rental property in Savannah, Georgia, purchased in 2016 under an alias. Surveillance photos later confirmed the occupant was Monique. Her face had changed slightly. Weight loss, new hair color, but the match was indisputable. Agents prepared a warrant, but once again, Monique disappeared before they could serve it. This time, she was gone without a trace. Denise Wright, Damon's sister, wasn't surprised when she got the call from the CID. She had suspected something was wrong since the funeral. She had stood next to that closed casket, feeling something was off. How quiet it was, how empty. She remembered her exact words afterward. It felt like we were burying a lie. Now that lie was unraveling. What haunted her most was not just the fact that Damon had been declared dead, or even that his wife had vanished with the money, but that for 12 years, no one in the system had ever asked questions. And Damon? He had questions of his own. Who buried that body? How did his wife know what to say, what to forge, what documents to submit? Who else helped her? Because it was now clear this wasn't just identity fraud. This was a staged death, and someone had orchestrated it. Quick check-in. If you're still watching, and we know you are, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Our community is growing across the globe, and it's amazing to see. If you're enjoying this breakdown, give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories. Right here on Criminal True File. Back at the Detroit precinct, investigators continued questioning Damon. His memory was fragmented, but improving. In his belongings, they found a torn leather-bound notebook, brittle with age, many pages missing or smudged by water damage. But some entries were still legible. He had written entries in 2013 and 2015. Some were just words. Cold today? Pray Mon sees this. Still alive. But one entry stood out. Dated March 8, 2017, it read, "Saw a broadcast. They said I died. There was a funeral, a flag. Monique was crying. But I know her cry. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying for what she took." This notebook, his journal from captivity, became a key piece of evidence in establishing a psychological timeline. It was submitted to the Army Review Board and included in a criminal complaint against Monique Wright, who was now officially wanted for fraudulent collection of government benefits, false reporting of a military death, conspiracy to defraud the United States. A federal manhunt was launched. By August 2023, the story had broken nationally. Dead soldier found alive in Detroit basement after 12 years became a leading headline on major news networks. Every outlet, from CNN to TMZ, scrambled for details. What began as a military mystery had now evolved into a national scandal. A soldier believed dead was found alive, malnourished, mentally shaken, and scribbling notes about betrayal in a discarded Bible. The media dubbed it the resurrection case. And the public? They were furious. Outrage over the lack of DNA testing, confusion about how a body had been misidentified, and shock at how millions in taxpayer-funded benefits had been paid out without question. Former service members and veterans groups demanded reforms. This is more than a mistake. This is a systemic failure. Veterans Coalition spokesperson. But behind all the headlines, one question still burned. Where was Monique Wright? We want to hear from you. Drop your city or country in the comments below. Our community spans the globe, and your support fuels this channel. While you're at it, smash that subscribe button and help us uncover even more hidden truths. Right here on Criminal True File. The first credible tip came from a grocery store clerk in Atlanta, Georgia. He claimed a woman matching Monique's description used food stamps and paid cash for her groceries. Surveillance footage confirmed it. She had changed her appearance again, now wearing a short wig and glasses. But the FBI facial recognition software caught her smile, the slight tilt of her head, the way she adjusted her purse with her left hand. A warrant was reactivated, and U.S. Marshals were deployed. But once again, she slipped away. Her vehicle, a black 2008 Nissan Altima, was found abandoned near a Greyhound station. Investigators believe she used a fake ID to board a bus to Houston, but that's where the trail went cold. She'd vanished like a ghost. On September 22nd, 2023, Damon Wright sat down for an exclusive televised interview, his first and only since being found alive. Visibly thinner, with a gaze that flickered between clarity and unease, Damon told 60 Minutes, "I didn't die. I was taken. I don't know how long I was in that room. Weeks, months? It blurred. There was a guy with an accent. He kept me chained. He fed me just enough. Said someone paid him." That statement changed everything. It introduced a horrifying new possibility. Damon hadn't gone missing voluntarily. He'd been abducted. Theories exploded online. Was Monique involved in his capture? Did she work with someone to stage the death? Who was the man Damon described? FBI profilers began reworking the case, and local detectives reviewed hundreds of missing persons and human trafficking cases from 2011 to 2013, hoping for a match. No suspects have been publicly named. Take a second and tell us in the comments, are you following this story from the US, Canada, South Africa, or beyond? Your voice matters. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. These stories go deeper than headlines, and we bring you the full truth at Criminal True File. In the middle of this chaos were two children, Monique and Damon's kids, now 20 and 17 years old. Their identities have been withheld for privacy, but statements from their appointed guardian paint a devastating picture. They had been told their father was a war hero, that he died honorably, that their mother did everything she could to stay strong. When the truth emerged, it shattered their world. A counselor familiar with the case reported, "They feel like their lives were built on lies. They don't know who to trust. Their mother vanished. Their father is back, but broken. Damon has attempted to reconnect with them through court-appointed therapists, but the process is ongoing and sensitive." In October 2023, a bipartisan hearing was held on Capitol Hill titled, "The Resurrection Scandal: Failures in Military Identification and Survivor Benefits." Representatives from the Department of Defense, the VA, and USAA were grilled on live television. How could a body be buried without DNA? How were millions paid without red flags? No one had clear answers. Several military policies were revised in the weeks that followed, including mandatory DNA confirmation for all combat deaths, third-party audit before issuing survivor benefits, oversight committee for high-value insurance claims. But for Damon Wright, these changes came a decade too late. While the FBI's trail on Monique Wright was growing cold, a retired private investigator named Samuel Skip Lawson was quietly conducting his own investigation. A former Army CID officer turned freelance consultant, Skip had followed the case closely since it broke, and he noticed something the press missed. Skip had read the Department of Defense's original casualty report from 2011, In the details, there was a line about a local contractor who provided intel about IED movements near the Kandahar convoy route. That same contractor had since vanished. His name, Faisal Rahim, a 32-year-old fixer with dual citizenship who'd worked briefly with several NATO allies before disappearing in early 2012. Skip cross-referenced his travel records and found that Faisal had entered the U.S. through a backdoor visa program for trusted collaborators. Where had he landed? Atlanta, the same city Monique had been spotted in months earlier. Could Faisal have been the accented man Damon mentioned? Could he have helped fake the death? Or even orchestrated the abduction? Skip sent his findings to the FBI, who are reportedly pursuing the lead, but no official confirmation has been released to the public. We're reaching viewers from every corner of the world, and we want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more stories that go beyond the headlines. This is Criminal True File. Investigators trying to piece together Monique's movements after Damon's disappearance found a troubling pattern. From 2012 to 2019, Monique had worked a series of under-the-table jobs, bartending, caregiving, even freelance accounting, using at least 3 different aliases. Each identity was linked to a string of P.O. boxes in Georgia, Texas, and Florida. She moved constantly, never stayed in one place longer than 9 months. She enrolled her children under false names. She paid in cash. She avoided social media entirely. And yet, she wasn't hiding from the law. She was hiding from someone else. That's the theory Skip and several online sleuths now suggest. One Reddit user, posting under the name Cold Truth Detective, claimed that Monique may have been under control of a trafficking ring or debt collectors tied to overseas contractors. That theory gained traction when a burned-out house in Savannah, Georgia, was found to contain documents and IDs matching one of Monique's aliases. In a scorched filing cabinet were letters, receipts, and a note scribbled in Sharpie. If they find me, I'm dead. Tell my kids the truth. The FBI has not officially confirmed the house belonged to Monique, but the handwriting matches previous samples. Meanwhile, Damon's recovery remained slow. Physically, he's stabilized. The injuries to his left side, shrapnel wounds, and an improperly healed clavicle were surgically addressed in October. He's regained some mobility and is in ongoing physical therapy. Mentally, the scars run deeper. He suffers from symptoms consistent with complex PTSD, night terrors, flashbacks, paranoia. He's been placed under supervised care with trauma specialists from the VA. During a session in November, Damon drew a map, a crude sketch, a room, a chain, a barred window, and a man's silhouette holding a syringe. He remembers pain, sleep, waking up weeks later in the same room. And then one day it was unlocked. No one was there. He wandered for hours before collapsing in a neighborhood near Highland Park, Michigan, where Alvin Briggs found him. Wherever you are in the world, US, UK, Australia, we want to hear from you. Comment below with your city or country, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a case like this. At Criminal True File, we dig deeper. One prevailing theory among investigators suggests that Monique and Faisal may have entered into an agreement. Monique stages Damon's death. Faisal handles the details overseas. The body is swapped, unverified, and buried under a false record. Monique receives the benefits. Damon is disposed of or kept alive as insurance. But something went wrong. Perhaps Faisal decided to use Damon as leverage. Maybe Monique panicked and ran. Or maybe, just maybe, she had a change of heart. But by then it was too late. That's the central mystery. And for now, it remains unsolved. It's been over a year since the truth about Damon Wright and Monique Wright came to light. Yet, in the minds of many, the case is far from over. After Monique's conviction, the story of the soldier who came back from the dead spiraled into one of the most talked-about scandals in military history. The media coverage was relentless, capturing the heartbreak of the family, the betrayal of a nation, and the ethical questions that have been raised in every corner of the country. One question lingered in the air, hanging heavy over the entire narrative. How could the U.S. government have been so wrong? The Department of Defense had launched an internal review, but the findings were less than satisfying. Official reports indicated that the identification of Damon Wright had been based on partial dental records and uniform fragments, but no DNA verification had been performed. According to the official military investigation, the decision was made based on the limited evidence available at the time. This statement sparked widespread anger. Critics pointed out that DNA testing should have been a basic protocol when dealing with soldier casualties, especially when the consequences were as severe as declaring someone dead and cutting off their rights to a future. The general public was furious that the Department of Defense had failed to verify Damon's identity, while Monique had been able to orchestrate an elaborate scheme that lasted over a decade. But some voices called it a complicated failure, one born out of desperation during a time of war. These voices claimed that Monique's motives weren't entirely rooted in malice. Instead, they were a result of complex emotions and survival instincts clashing with an underlying love that still existed for her husband. As for Damon, his life has been forever changed. The man who had once been declared dead had survived not only the wounds of war, but the brutal psychological toll of living in hiding for more than a decade. He was reunited with his biological family, including his estranged sister Denise Wright, who had fought to uncover the truth from the very beginning. Their emotional reunion was covered extensively in the media, with Damon making a public statement. "I don't know where to start, except to say this. I didn't ask for this life. I didn't ask for any of it. But I was alive, and I couldn't be the man I was supposed to be. It wasn't just the explosion that broke me. It was what I became in the years after." Damon's recovery has been long and slow. The physical scars from the explosion that nearly killed him were only the beginning of his painful journey. He began to work with a trauma therapist and a veteran support group, trying to reconcile the man he had become with the life he had left behind. But the hardest part? Rebuilding the relationships he had lost during his fake death. Damon's children, who had grown up without him, were initially cautious, but eventually warmed to him. The strain of the past 12 years was evident, and the family dynamic would never be the same. The man who was truly behind it all, Faisal Rahim, remains a ghost. Despite Monique's plea deal and her cooperation with authorities, Rahim's whereabouts remain unknown. Federal agents have tracked his movements across multiple countries, but have been unable to capture him. Rumors swirl about his connections to global arms dealers, black market activities, and clandestine networks that could keep him hidden indefinitely. Some speculate that Faisal is orchestrating his own reemergence, potentially planning to flip the story on its head once more, with Monique as his accomplice in his new criminal empire. What remains is a lingering impact of Damon Wright's death. Not just a physical death that was faked, but the emotional death that spanned more than a decade. As for Monique, the reality of her choices has left deep scars on both her and the nation. While she serves out her prison sentence, the truth of her betrayal will continue to ripple through the people closest to her, especially her children, who now face the painful reality of what their mother did. There are questions that still haunt many. Did Monique truly love Damon, or was her love for him manipulated by a web of lies? Could she have turned back? Would it have been possible to reveal the truth without losing everything? As for Damon, his future is uncertain. What does life look like for a man who was dead to the world and now must start over, having lived a lie for 12 years? How does one reconcile the physical trauma with the mental weight of betrayal? We're coming to the end of this incredible story, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to Criminal True File for more stories like this one. The case of Damon Wright is more than just a tale of a soldier who returned from the dead. It's a story of betrayal, of deception, and the staggering consequences of lies told by those we trust most. It speaks to the lengths people will go to survive, and how easily the truth can be buried beneath layers of manipulation. In the end, the questions still remain. Who are we in the face of adversity? Are we the heroes of our own stories, or are we capable of monstrous decisions when driven by the need to escape our own fears and failures? As for Damon and Monique, their lives will forever be bound by the truth no one was supposed to know. The world will watch, but their story, their truth, is theirs alone. That concludes our deep dive into the twisted tale of Damon Wright and Monique Wright. What do you think? Was justice served? What do you think the future holds for both of them, with no possibility of parole? In her final statement to court, she said, I buried the wrong version of myself. I thought I was surviving, but I was running. I love Damon. I still do, but I was too scared to do the right thing until it was far too late. The judge called it a tragedy shaped by desperation, not malice, but reminded the court that choices have consequences. On January 2nd, 2024, nearly 7 months after Damon, Wright was discovered in that abandoned house in Detroit, a woman using the name Lana Reeves was arrested in Mobile, Alabama. The charge? Shoplifting less than $50 worth of groceries from a local market. But when she was booked into county jail, her fingerprints triggered a federal alert. Lana Reeves was Monique Wright, the woman who had once received a folded flag over a closed casket. The woman whose husband was declared dead in a war zone had been living under a stolen identity, working as a dog groomer and renting a room above a gas station. She didn't resist arrest. In fact, according to the booking officer, she seemed relieved. "I knew this day would come," she reportedly whispered. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you're drawn to stories like this one, subscribe to Criminal True File so you don't miss what's next. Monique's interrogation was sealed from the public for months, but snippets were leaked by a source close to the case. And what she allegedly confessed stunned everyone, even the investigators. According to leaked excerpts, Monique admitted to helping fake Damon's death with assistance from Faisal Rahim, whom she described as a shadow broker. Faisal had offered a way out, freedom from mounting debt, a fresh identity, and enough cash to disappear. She says she was told Damon would be relocated, not harmed, but she never saw him again after 2011. By the time she realized he may have been held against his will, it was too dangerous to go back. But there was more. Monique claimed she had tried to send clues in the form of fake job applications, anonymous postcards, and one cryptic Facebook message from an abandoned account. The flag is still folded. The FBI has neither confirmed nor denied the existence of these messages. But if true, they suggest Monique may have tried to undo the very crime she helped commit. On February 14th, 2024, in a secure wing of a federal medical facility, Damon Wright was reunited with his estranged wife under court supervision. The meeting lasted 11 minutes. According to observers, Damon entered hesitantly. Monique was already seated, shackled at the ankles, her expression unreadable. Damon stood in silence for 30 seconds before whispering, "You knew I was alive." She nodded. He didn't speak again. After 7 minutes of silence, she wept. Damon turned and walked out. The guards ended the meeting. That was the last time they saw each other in person. This case has traveled across borders and timelines, and we want to know where you're watching from. Tell us in the comments. And remember to hit subscribe for more deep dive stories only on Criminal True File. Federal prosecutors charge Monique with wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government, identity theft, obstruction of justice, and aiding and abetting a false casualty report. But she didn't go to trial. On March 7th, 2024, Monique accepted a plea deal, reducing her sentence in exchange for a full cooperation in locating Faisal Rahim, who remains at large. She was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison.